Let me tell you something. You don't take a job at a cemetery unless you're running from something. I wasn't religious. I wasn't even superstitious. But after 2 months of unemployment and my savings draining faster than a Vegas slot machine, I answered an ad in the local paper. Night attendant needed, Black Pines Cemetery. No experience required. The pay was suspiciously high. No interviews, just a handwritten note saying, "Show up at midnight. Don't be late." Should have been my first warning. As I drove through the winding roads leading to Black Pines, the moon hung low, casting eerie shadows that danced across the cracked pavement. The cemetery loomed ahead, its wrought iron gates creaking open as if welcoming me into a world I didn't belong to. I parked my car, the engine's hum fading into the oppressive silence that enveloped the place. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, a reminder of the countless souls resting beneath the surface. I stepped out, my heart racing, half expecting to see a ghostly figure emerge from the fog. Instead, I was greeted by Elias, the cemetery's caretaker, a hunched old man with a face like a weathered tombstone. "Welcome," he rasped, his voice gravelly and low. "You're here for the night shift?" I nodded, trying to mask my unease. "Good. Just follow the rules and you'll be fine." He handed me a crumpled piece of paper, the ink smudged but legible. Rule 1, never whistle after dark. Rule 2, don't acknowledge anyone who calls your name from the north section. Rule 3, if a grave looks freshly dug, do not touch the soil. Rule 4, at 3:33 a.m., go to the caretaker's shed and turn the radio to static, no matter what you hear underneath it. I chuckled nervously, thinking it was all a joke, but Elias didn't laugh back. His eyes were serious, almost pleading. "Just remember, the dead don't like to be disturbed," he warned, his gaze drifting to the shadows that seemed to shift around us. As the clock struck midnight, I took my post, flashlight in hand, the beam cutting through the darkness. The cemetery felt alive, the wind whispering secrets through the trees. I tried to shake off the feeling of being watched, but the sensation clung to me like a second skin. Little did I know, the rules were just the beginning. The darkness held secrets I was unprepared to face, and soon, I would learn that some things are better left buried. He takes a slow drag from a cigarette, exhaling smoke into the dim light. Black Pines wasn't your typical graveyard. Most cemeteries have that peaceful, manicured look, like a park with a depressing theme. But this place, it was something else entirely. The moment I stepped through the wrought iron gates, I felt the weight of history pressing down on me. Bone-white statues loomed over the graves, their faces twisted in expressions of sorrow and despair, as if they were eternally mourning the lives lost around them. Crumbling headstones jutted out of the ground at odd angles, cracked open like they were trying to breathe, revealing the earth beneath as if it were gasping for air. Each stone seemed to tell a story, but the stories were lost to time, buried beneath layers of neglect and sorrow. The trees were another story altogether. Gnarled and twisted, their branches reached out like frozen hands, clawing at the sky as if trying to escape the weight of their own existence. The leaves rustled softly in the wind, but it was a sound that felt more like a whisper, a warning perhaps than a comfort. And the silence, God, the silence. Not even crickets dared to make noise here. It was the kind of silence that wraps around you, thick and suffocating, making you acutely aware of your own heartbeat. Every footstep echoed, a reminder that I was disturbingly alone in this place where the living and the dead coexisted in a fragile balance. As I walked deeper into the cemetery, the moonlight cast long shadows that danced across the ground, creating an illusion of movement where there was none. I could almost hear the whispers of the past, the stories of those who had come before me, their voices mingling with the rustling leaves. It was as if the cemetery itself was alive, breathing in the darkness, waiting for something or someone to awaken it. I shivered, pulling my jacket tighter around me. The chill in the air was more than just the temperature. It felt like a presence, a reminder that I was trespassing in a realm that belonged to the dead. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the statues and headstones were judging my every move. Little did I know, the true horrors of Black Pines were yet to reveal themselves, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to strike. He leans forward, voice dropping to a whisper. The first rule was simple: never whistle after dark. My boss, a hunched old man named Elias, handed me a list typed on yellowed paper, the edges frayed and stained as if it had been passed down through generations. I took it, half expecting a punchline, but the look in his eyes told me this was no joke. Rule 2. Don't acknowledge anyone who calls your name from the north section. Rule 3. If a grave looks freshly dug, do not touch the soil. Rule 4. At 3:33 a.m., go to the caretaker's shed and turn the radio to static, no matter what you hear underneath it. I chuckled nervously, thinking it was some morbid joke. I mean, who wouldn't? It felt like something out of a horror movie, a script designed to scare the new guy. But Elias didn't laugh back. His face was a mask of seriousness, the lines etched deep into his skin telling stories of sleepless nights and unspoken fears. Listen, kid, he said, his voice gravelly and low. These rules are here for a reason. You think I enjoy working in a place like this? You think I haven't seen things? I shrugged, trying to play it cool, but the chill creeping up my spine betrayed me. Just remember, the dead don't like to be disturbed, he warned, his gaze drifting to the shadows that seemed to shift around us. I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the unease. But as I read the rules again, the weight of them settled heavily on my shoulders. Rule 2 was particularly unsettling. The north section was known for its old graves, some dating back to the 1800s. I had heard stories about that part of the cemetery, whispers of restless spirits and strange occurrences. The thought of someone calling my name from there sent a shiver down my spine. Rule 3 was equally unnerving. Freshly dug graves were a common sight, but the idea of touching the soil made my stomach churn. What if something was buried there that shouldn't be? What if it was a warning? And then there was Rule 4. The thought of going to the caretaker's shed at 3:33 a.m., turning the radio to static, and listening to whatever might come through the speakers was enough to make my skin crawl. I imagined the static crackling with voices from beyond, secrets of the dead spilling into the night. Why 3:33? I asked, trying to sound casual. Elias's eyes darkened. It's a time when the veil between worlds is thinnest. You'll understand when you hear it. I didn't want to understand. I wanted to laugh it off, to dismiss it as the ramblings of an old man who had spent too many nights alone in a graveyard. But the way he spoke, the urgency in his tone, made me reconsider. As I pocketed the list, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I was in over my head, and I knew it, but I needed the money, and I had already committed. Just remember, Elias said, his voice dropping to a whisper again. The rules are there to protect you. Break them, and you might not make it through the night. I nodded, but deep down, I felt a creeping dread. I had no idea what I had signed up for, and the darkness of Black Pines was just beginning to reveal its secrets. A shaky breath. Third night in, I broke Rule 2. I was patrolling near the north fence, the moon casting an eerie glow over the gravestones, when I heard it. A woman's voice, soft and melodic, humming right behind me. It was a haunting tune, one that seemed to echo through the stillness of the night. "You're new," she whispered, her voice like silk brushing against my skin. I turned. Big mistake. She wasn't standing. She was crawling, long black hair dragging through the dirt, fingers digging into the earth like roots. Her movements were unnatural, as if she were part of the ground itself, a grotesque extension of the cemetery. And her eyes, They weren't eyes, just hollow pits shining wet in the moonlight, voids that seemed to absorb the light around them. A chill ran down my spine, and every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. I stumbled backward, my heart racing, the humming growing louder, more insistent. It was as if she was beckoning me closer, but I knew better. I remembered Elias's warning, "Don't acknowledge anyone who calls your name from the north section." But I was frozen, caught in the grip of terror. The woman's mouth twisted into a smile, revealing teeth that were sharp and jagged, like broken tombstones. I could feel the weight of her gaze, pulling me in, threatening to drag me down into the darkness with her. I finally found my legs and I ran. I didn't stop until I hit the gates, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The cold metal of the gate felt like a lifeline, a barrier between me and whatever horror lurked in the shadows. I leaned against it, trying to catch my breath, my heart pounding in my chest like a war drum. What had I just seen? Was it a trick of the light, a figment of my imagination? I shook my head, trying to dispel the image of her crawling toward me, her fingers clawing at the ground. But the memory clung to me, vivid and unrelenting. I glanced back at the cemetery, the shadows shifting as if they were alive. The north section loomed ominously, and I could almost hear the whispers of the dead, urging me to return. But I knew better. I had broken a rule, and now I was paying the price. I stumbled back to the caretaker's shed, my mind racing. What was I supposed to do? I couldn't tell Elias. He would think I was losing my mind. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the woman was still out there, lurking in the darkness, waiting for me to return. As I reached the shed, I fumbled for the door, my hands trembling. I needed to get inside, to lock the door and shut out the horrors of the night. But as I turned the handle, I heard it again, the soft humming echoing through the stillness, wrapping around me like a shroud. I froze, my heart racing. I had to get inside. I had to escape, but the darkness was closing in, and I could feel the weight of the cemetery pressing down on me, suffocating me in its embrace. I pushed the door open and stumbled inside, slamming it shut behind me. I leaned against it, panting, my mind racing with questions. What had I just encountered? And more importantly, what would happen if I broke another rule? His fingers tightened around a whiskey glass. After that, the rules changed. Each morning, I awoke to find a new note slid under my door, the paper worn and yellowed, the ink smudged as if written in haste. The first time it happened, I thought it was a prank, a cruel joke meant to scare the new guy. But as I read the latest editions, a sense of dread settled in my stomach. Rule 7. Feed the black dog at the east gate. Never ask where it came from. Rule 8. If a mourner leaves coins on a grave, take them. Don't count them. Rule 9. When the statues turn their heads, close your eyes. I stared at the notes, my heart racing. The black dog? I had seen it lurking at the edge of the cemetery, its eyes glowing like embers in the dark. It was a massive creature, with matted fur and an aura of menace that sent shivers down my spine. I had avoided it, thinking it was just another stray, but now I was being told to feed it? And the coins? I had seen mourners leaving offerings on the graves, but I had never thought to take them. What kind of twisted game was this? But the most unsettling of all was Rule 9. The thought of the statues turning their heads, of them watching me, made my skin crawl. I could still remember the way they had seemed to shift in the moonlight, their expressions frozen in sorrow. Closing my eyes felt like an invitation to the unknown, a way to blind myself to whatever horrors lurked in the shadows. The paychecks kept coming, but they felt tainted, as if each one was a reminder of the darkness I was now a part of. I glanced at the latest one, the numbers printed neatly on the page, but Elias' handwriting. It didn't match the rules anymore. The letters were jagged, almost frantic, as if he were trying to warn me without saying the words aloud. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being drawn deeper into something I didn't understand. Each night, I followed the rules, but with every passing hour, the cemetery felt more alive, more sinister. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist, and I could hear whispers in the wind, secrets carried from the graves. One night, I found myself standing at the east gate, the black dog watching me with those glowing eyes. I had brought scraps of meat, my hands trembling as I tossed them toward the creature. It sniffed the ground, then looked up at me, its gaze piercing through the darkness. I felt a strange connection, as if it were judging my worthiness. Just a dog, I muttered to myself, trying to convince my racing heart. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. As I turned to leave, I heard a low growl rumble from the creature, a warning that sent chills down my spine. I quickened my pace, the weight of the cemetery pressing down on me. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the notes scattered around me like fallen leaves. I couldn't escape the feeling that I was being watched, that the rules were tightening around me like a noose. I had broken one rule already, and now I was trapped in a web of darkness, with no way out. What would happen if I broke another? The thought haunted me, a specter lurking in the corners of my mind. I had to find a way to escape this nightmare before it consumed me whole. A long pause. The glass trembles slightly. Then came Rule 12. Dig up grave number 317. I should have quit. I should have walked away from Black Pines and never looked back. But the paychecks were too good, and I was too deep in this nightmare to turn back now. The thought of leaving without a plan, without money, was terrifying. So I grabbed my shovel, my heart pounding in my chest, and made my way to the north section, where the air felt heavier, almost suffocating. The moon hung high, casting an eerie glow over the cemetery, illuminating the headstones like ghostly sentinels. I found grave number 317, its marker worn and cracked, the name barely legible. I hesitated, staring at the earth that had been disturbed so many times before. What lay beneath? With each thrust of the shovel, I felt a mix of dread and curiosity. The soil was damp and heavy, clinging to the metal like it was trying to hold me back. I dug deeper, sweat trickling down my back, the night air thick with tension. I could almost hear the whispers of the dead, urging me to stop, to turn back before it was too late. But I pressed on, driven by a force I couldn't understand. The hole grew deeper, and soon I hit something solid. My heart raced as I cleared away the last of the dirt, revealing a small, weathered coffin. It was child-sized, and a wave of nausea washed over me. I pried it open, my hands trembling. The lid creaked as it gave way, and I was met with a sight that would haunt me forever. Inside lay a small figure, wrapped in tattered cloth, the face obscured. I leaned closer, my breath hitching in my throat, and then I heard it. He stops abruptly, jaw clenched. You ever hear something scream without making a sound? That's what it felt like. A scream that echoed in my mind, a silent wail that reverberated through my very being. I couldn't see the child's face, but I could feel the weight of despair pressing down on me, a sorrow so profound it threatened to swallow me whole. I stumbled back, the world spinning around me. The air felt thick, suffocating, and I could hear the whispers growing louder, swirling around me like a storm. I had crossed a line, and I knew it. I had disturbed something that should have remained buried. Panic surged through me, and I scrambled to close the coffin, to seal away whatever darkness lay within. But as I did, I felt a cold breeze sweep through the cemetery, chilling me to the bone. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist, and I could hear the faint sound of laughter, childlike and haunting, echoing in the night. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the gates, my heart pounding in my chest, the weight of what I had done crashing down on me. I could still hear that silent scream, a reminder of the horrors I had unearthed. As I leaned against the gate, gasping for breath, I knew I could never return to Black Pines. The rules had changed, and I had become part of a darkness I couldn't escape. I had broken the final rule, and now I was marked, forever haunted by the echoes of the past. I glanced back at the cemetery, the shadows shifting ominously, and I knew that whatever lay within those gates would never let me go. He downs the whiskey in one gulp, the glass clinking against the table as he sets it down. I still work there. Every night, I return to Black Pines Cemetery, the gates creaking open like a mouth ready to swallow me whole. I tell myself it's just a job, that I'm doing what I need to survive. But deep down, I know the truth. I'm trapped. Every night, the rules get darker. Each morning, I find new notes under my door, the ink smeared and frantic, as if the very act of writing them is a desperate plea for help. The latest rules are the worst yet. Rule 13. If you hear laughter, don't look for the source. Rule 14. When the fog rolls in, stay inside. Rule 15. If you see a child in the cemetery, run. I've seen the fog roll in, thick and suffocating, wrapping around the gravestones like a shroud. I've heard the laughter, a sound that chills me to the bone, echoing through the night. And I've seen the child, small, pale, with hollow eyes that seem to pierce through the darkness. Each time, I've followed the rules, but the fear gnaws at me, a constant reminder of the horrors that lurk just beyond the veil. Every sunrise, I swear I'm leaving. I tell myself that tomorrow will be the day I walk away from this nightmare, that I'll find a way to escape the grip of Black Pines. But as the sun rises, casting its light over the cemetery, I feel the weight of the place settle over me like a heavy blanket. The paychecks keep coming, and with them, the sense of obligation grows. But here's the thing about Black Pines. Once you take its money, it won't let you go. I've tried to quit. I've gone to Elias, my voice trembling as I tell him I can't do this anymore. But he just looks at me with those knowing eyes, as if he's seen it all before. You think you can just walk away? He asks, his voice low and gravelly. You think they'll let you? I've seen the way the cemetery changes at night, how the shadows stretch and twist, how the statues seem to watch me with their cold, unblinking eyes. I felt the presence of the dead, their whispers echoing in my mind, urging me to stay, to fulfill my role in this dark tapestry. I've become part of the cemetery, a thread woven into its fabric. The rules bind me, and I can feel the weight of them pressing down on me, suffocating me. I've lost track of time, of days and nights, of what it means to be free. The light flickers out, plunging the room into darkness. Silence. In that silence, I can hear the whispers of the dead, the laughter of the child, the rustling of the leaves in the wind. I know they're waiting for me to break another rule, to dig deeper into the darkness. And as I sit in the dark, I realize that I'm not just a night attendant anymore. I'm a prisoner of Black Pines, bound by the rules and the weight of the past. I've become part of the cemetery, and there's no escaping the shadows that linger just beyond the light.